Good evening, and thank you for attending the Santa Barbara Trust for Historic Preservation's 12th annual Asian American Film Series. My name is Kai Tepper. I'm a Santa Barbara Trust for Historic Preservation board member and co-chair of the Trust's Asian American Affinity Group. This amazing group is made up of local Asian American and Pacific Islander community members who volunteer their talents and time to help the Trust plan and organize free educational events like this one. Since 2010, Santa Barbara Trust for Historic Preservation has presented the Asian American Film Series, an event held on Fridays in July. In an effort to explore the history and cultures of the Asian communities that once thrived in and around the Santa Barbara Presidio area, the series includes films that speak to the Asian American experience in the Western US. The films have addressed a broad range of historical and modern topics, such as the internment of Japanese Americans during World War II, Chinese American adoptions, and the contributions of key Asian American figures. This film series is made possible by the generous support of the George H. Griffiths and Olive J. Griffiths Charitable Foundation. A major goal of the committee is to educate the public about the history and cultures of the Asian communities that once thrived in and around the Presidio in the late 1800s and early 1900s. I'd like to take a moment to thank our series sponsors, the George H. Griffiths and Olive J. Griffiths Charitable Foundation. Before we begin tonight's event, we want to acknowledge and honor the original inhabitants of our region. Let's take a moment to honor these ancestral grounds that we are collectively gathered upon and support the resilience and strength that all Indigenous people have shown worldwide. We are on the traditional territory of the Chumash peoples. Our local AAPI Business Spotlight of the Week is Marui Me Sushi. Chef Kevin Slemons started his pop-up business through necessity during the COVID-19 pandemic and is excited to keep it going as things progress. Each Wednesday at the Pickle Room, which is pictured, which we will be highlighting today, so each Wednesday at the Pickle Room, Kevin provides delicious sushi boxes using high quality fish, focusing on fresh ingredients and classic techniques. To reserve a sushi box, orders must be made by Monday via Instagram message at Marui Me Sushi. I'll be sure to put that in the chat for you all. The following Wednesday, sushi boxes can be picked up between 5 p.m. and 8 p.m. Kevin is excited to share and celebrate his Japanese culture with the SB community in a historic AAPI neighborhood. And I will make sure to put that here. Looks like Kevin already beat me to it. All right. So first we're going to share the link to the screening. Oh, wait, let's see here. So we're thankful to have the opportunity today to chat with the director and producer of Grasshopper with Grandpa, Casey McGarry. The Q&A will begin at 6:40 p.m. But first, we're going to share the link to the screening. The film will be 30 minutes long. So you can find the link in the Zoom chat box. All right. And with that,
and Kai, just one more thing before people go. So we're going to come back at 6:40. This is Kevin McGarry from the Trust, everyone. We're going to come back at 6:40 p.m. for the Q&A. So that gives you more than enough time to watch the film. And if you have any problems, I would leave your Zoom screen open and use the link to go into another window and then view the screening and then come back to the Zoom at 6:40. And at that time, that's when the Q&A will start. If you have any problems with the link, I'm going to be monitoring the chat. So just put it in the chat box in your Zoom window, okay? If you have any issues, you can also email me, kevin@sbthp.org.
Thank you, Kevin. I hope everyone enjoys the film. We will see you back at 6:40 p.m. Hi, welcome back. Hi, Casey.
Hey, Kai.
How's it going? How are you?
Doing all right. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I've seen your film so many times and I love it every time. Like I feel like I love it more and more each time.
Appreciate that. Thanks so much.
Well, welcome back, everybody. We'll get started with our Q&A with the filmmaker, Casey McGarry. So Casey McGarry is a writer, director, producer who studied film and creative writing at Fordham University at Lincoln Center in New York City, graduating in 2010. He got his start in the documentary world there while working for acclaimed documentary filmmaker Jennifer Fox. He's worked in scripted TV on such shows as South of Nowhere and New Girl. He's had 4 documentary films that have premiered at Santa Barbara International Film Festival, including Grasshopper for Grandpa, 2015, The Boatmaker in 2017, Cascarone, 2018, and From Water to Wind, 2019. So we'll do a little bit of a Q&A, and then after our conversation, we should have some time to address questions from the audience as well. So if you have questions for Casey, please leave them in the chat box or by using the Q&A feature. Both of these features can be found at the bottom of your Zoom screen. So Casey, my first question for you is really, how did you come up with the idea to highlight Jimmy's Oriental Gardens and the pickle room?
Well, it was 2 different stories, actually. So I knew Bob Lovejoy and the Lovejoys from growing up on the Mesa. And I grew up with Bob's daughter, Athena. And I ran into Bob down in Montecito, and he was running 3 Pickles already, the deli side, and he had opened up 3 Pickles years before with his son Clay, where Handlebar Coffee is now. And he just told me, I was with Kevin, my brother, who runs, all this stuff. But he said, come down to the deli, I'll buy you a sandwich and a beer, and then I want to show you the bar, which, wasn't restored yet, but he was working on it with his son Clay. So that's one part of it. And then I ran into another friend of mine named Milo, who had a bunch of video from when Jimmy's was closing back in like 2000, gosh, I don't know, the early 2000s or 2007. And he was like, I got all this video and I've been wanting to make a documentary for a long time, but I don't really know how to make a documentary. And his wife was with him, and whose name is Margot. And Margot is like, yeah, you should really help him make this documentary because it's a really cool story. And so that was kind of the chain of events that happened. And then it kind of just, I don't know, it was like a snowball effect. Like I started researching more and more about the place, and it just became like a film concept that I figured, I could do and pull off. And I was looking for a project at the time to kind of get me out of, whatever I was doing then. So.
Was this film one of the, it's been a while since I've seen The Boatmaker, but I know you've done some other kind of vignette pieces on Santa Barbara kind of icons. Was this one of your earlier pieces that kind of had this, historical overview, or was that already kind of an area that you were working in?
What's funny about that is, yeah, like every film I made is kind of centrally based here in Santa Barbara. Even like my college thesis film I made about my dad and his singing partner, they were born in LA, but a lot of the story revolves around Santa Barbara. But yeah, so Grasshopper for Grandpa, like, really is probably the most historical doc that I've done. I usually do like personal portrait type documentaries, and yeah.
A tremendous amount of research that must go into putting these films together. And I'm noticing a question here from Paul that said, how do you ever get all those wonderful still photos? And I actually had the same question. I mean, obviously you have a great resource, Kevin, working at the Trust for Historic Preservation, but yeah, maybe talk a little bit about that process of uncovering all those images.
Sure. Yeah, there's a combination of things. So there's like 2 historical societies in town. There's a historical museum and the Trust for Historic Preservation, and they both have libraries with photos. So I got photos from both of those organizations. And then I also got photos from family members like Barbara Chung, who's Tommy Chung's younger sister. And then all the people, all the like patrons that hung out at the bar and the restaurant forever. Pretty much whatever I could find in the matter of like, the 2.5 months that I was making this thing. So.
Very cool. So you mentioned Barbara Chung, and I know we had originally hoped to have either someone from the Chung family or even from the Lovejoy family join us today. But obviously you were able to spend some time with them, especially during your kind of interview and research process for the film. I'm so curious, what were their reactions, when you started approaching them about exploring this film? Had they had any of them been approached before by other people wanting to cover this history?
I don't really know the answer to that question when it comes to if anybody else wanted to make the film, maybe, but I never heard anything about it. It was just kind of one of like these experiences in my life that was like serendipitous, and I don't know, maybe I'm the one that was meant to make the film. So
Well, I'm glad you made the film. It's such an important piece, especially in the context of, you and I both grew up here, and one of the questions I actually have for you is how much you knew about Chinatown and Nihon Machi, or Japantown, prior to making this film. I knew a little bit. My dad's grandparents lived on the Mesa, and so he had I think some maybe early memories of kind of remnants of Chinatown and whatnot. But I think it's so important to be able to highlight these kinds of stories to make sure that these icons and narratives persist. Especially if you walk down on Cannon Perdido, Jimmy's Oriental Gardens, that sign is out there, and that's really it's hard to most people walking by wouldn't have any idea that there used to be this thriving Chinatown. So I'm just so grateful that there are people like you who spend so much time and attention and care to preserve those stories. But yeah, how much did you know about kind of the Asian American communities prior to your film?
That's part of the reason why I was so motivated to do the project was I didn't know there was a Chinatown in Santa Barbara, and it was I felt pretty dumb, but that fact like by itself like made me want to make the film. That was like a big motivational I don't know mobilizing thing that like was in the back of my mind, like, you didn't know there was a Chinatown in Santa Barbara? Or like, that was kind of one of my catchphrases. I was like, did you know there was a Chinatown in Santa Barbara? So yeah, I didn't know much at all besides like the basic Chinese history I learned in grade school and high school, about the immigration and like them building the railroads and everything else.
So one of and I see that this question has also come up in the chat, but I think one of the kind of folklore topics that has often come up when people do find out about Chinatown, or those who are aware of that history, is the tunnels. It's just kind of this like legendary thing, like, did you know? And my dad has also claimed to have been in a basement in some other, business downtown where he says he has seen the end of a tunnel, but I cannot confirm that. But are the tunnels fact or folklore? And can you talk a little bit maybe about what that felt like to be in the basement of the, former Jimmy's restaurant?
I mean, it's fact and folklore. I think it's a combination of both. There definitely are tunnels in downtown Santa Barbara. I'm not sure about the ones underneath Jimmy's Oriental Gardens, but I know there are certainly ones under El Paseo, which I've heard, and other places. I haven't seen them myself. I did go down to the basement, and it looked like there was a lot of stuff going on that I couldn't see, like beyond the wall, like the short walls of the basement down there. But I don't know. It's fun to joke about and leave it open ended. I wish I knew more. I don't know, but I can't really answer that like completely factually. So
at least for me, it just feels like such a kind of parallel, symbolism to trying to uncover, I think, more untold or forgotten histories in Santa Barbara. I mean, I think there's so many cultures in Santa Barbara that have thrived over generations and generations, and being able to preserve important buildings and icons like Jimmy's Oriental Garden. I mean, those are ways to kind of preserve those communities. So, I think Santa Barbara is probably filled with, literal tunnels probably, but also more, stories that need to be uncovered. And on that note, so one of the questions I have for you, so you've done a number of, these great films about kind of either, cultural significant kind of stories to Santa Barbara or historical stories. Do you foresee doing any other films in the future that might highlight, lesser known, untold AAPI histories?
Maybe. I don't know if I'm the one to do that. Like, I wish if this were to be like a feature doc, the Grasshopper one, which it certainly could have been, I would have definitely dug way more deeper into the Asian American influence of, Santa Barbara and the two different generations of Chinatown and the population here and why it was important, and California becoming what it is now because they, helped build the state in our country. But when it comes to other stories, I don't know, maybe one day, but I don't have anything in the queue.
Something serendipitously will pop up and lead you down that road. Hopefully. Yeah, I'm loving some of the comments here about reminiscing about the food and the tea smoked chicken. There's a comment in here that your next documentary could be the tunnels on SB. But so there's a question here which I was interested about as well, that references the musicians or the music score. There's moments in the film where I feel like there's just kind of this like hauntingly beautiful music and instruments. I thought it was kind of interesting. I saw an interview of yours from a while back that kind of touched on the score of the film, and it seems that Pickle Room also kind of has carried on this like jazzy vibe, which perhaps is kind of this cultural continuation from the days of Jimmy's. Could you talk about how the jazz influence came into play for your film?
That was one of the details that Bob Lovejoy let me know early on, and it was another like really inspiring and mobilizing detail that made me want to make the film even more. And one of my favorite films is Chinatown, and I grew up playing jazz with Ike Jenkins, the director from Santa Barbara High, and I played with him out at DP. But I always wanted to put jazz to a soundtrack of something I worked on. And so it was just kind of a natural coincidence. And then when Bob told me the detail about Nate Berkby being this like Chet Baker like trumpet player that was really good friends with Willie and used to play at Jimmy's, and then I saw the footage of him actually playing on like closing night and all that stuff. It was just like, wow, the sock just fit. It was like I already had a playlist of like the jazz that I thought I wanted to be the score and the soundtrack. And then when I actually combed through Nate Berkey's catalog, and especially his gospel record, I was like, wow, this is the soundtrack. It was just so perfect and haunting, and I was like, it gives it this like noir aspect that I don't know, that for a documentary, because it's not a noir film, but like the jazz just like gives it that like really cool vibe, that like kind of, whoa, what's going on, and for Santa Barbara, I don't know, it gives Santa Barbara like a sophistication, I think, the jazz.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. It's also, really, I think, wonderful to kind of acknowledge your film also as it's kind of become, I think in a way, a memorial piece too, right, to Tommy Chung and to Bob Lovejoy, and there's something really nice about having that jazz as this kind of, beautiful, homage to these amazing, visionaries who kept that, kept the vibrancy of that neighborhood going. And there's some other comments in here in the chat. Someone asked, so what did the clampers do for the history of Jimmy's? And I don't know the answer to that question, but I do know some clampers, so I would love to know. If you happen to know, Casey, feel free to share.
You kept the bar open?
I don't know. Yeah, exactly. They're probably, I would assume they might be good at that.
I don't know much about the clampers. I do have some footage from O McFadden of the clampers and like one of their events they did where they went around the neighborhood, but I don't know much about the clampers.
Yeah, I've been not to go too off topic, but I've been told by someone that clampers are either historians with a drinking problem or alcoholics with a history problem. So either way, there's this appreciation for history involved. So, but anyways, I guess, if there's any maybe last, final comments that you want to share about the film, or I'm always curious about what kinds of challenges or, maybe, things that you wish that you could have maybe, delved into a little bit more, but maybe take a couple minutes just to kind of share your final thoughts with our audience today.
All right. Well, it's nice to revisit this film and to think about how much it's impacted my life, like in the last 6-7 years. And we all miss Bob Lovejoy, and so cheers to him and Tommy Chung. This film means a lot to me because I moved back up here from LA, and it kind of started my successful documentary run up here in Santa Barbara, and I feel like it helped create a stronger documentary film community here with the film festival, and just young people feeling like they had a voice and could play at the film festival, and made other people realize that it's not that hard to pick up a camera and tell a good story, especially in a place like this where you have such like a melting pot of culture, and there's so many crazy cool stories hidden under rocks everywhere here. I mean, I might be done for a while telling Santa Barbara stories, at least in that form, but hopefully this film just inspires people to carry tradition on, because Jimmy's Oriental Gardens is like an amazing, beautiful, family kind of oriented, cultural, inclusive tradition, and hopefully it inspires people to make documentary films in Santa Barbara and tell the right history.
Yeah, thank you so much for saying all that. Yeah, I mean, it's certainly, so I mean, I have referenced your film so many times because I was that kid that would ask people before, I mean, this is years ago, being like, did you know we had a Chinatown, in Santa Barbara? And people would be like, no, you don't know what you're talking about. But it's so nice to be able to be like, no, I do know what I'm talking about. Here, check out this awesome film that highlights, this very special place that once was in the center of this thriving AAPI community. And it certainly has inspired me, and I know it's inspired other people. So thank you so much. Yeah, thanks so much for joining us tonight, Casey. I think the spirit and legacy of Jimmy's, as well as Tommy Chung and Bob Lovejoy, certainly continues to live on, I think, through the atmosphere of the Pickle Room today too. And every time I walk in there, it still feels like such a special place. I think your film does an incredible job of capturing such a Santa Barbara treasure. I can't wait to have a drink with you at the Pickle Room soon. So those of you joining us from out of town, I highly encourage you to visit the Pickle Room on your next trip. Inside the Pickle Room is an awesome exhibit on display that highlights Jimmy's Oriental Garden and talks a little bit about the Chinatown that once existed in the heart of downtown. So to all of our guests this evening, we really appreciate you all tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed the film. Please join us next week for the final film of our AAPI Film Festival, Sonzai, Japantown, Santa Barbara. Yeah, I think we'll end with that, and I hope everyone has a great night, and we will see you all soon. Thank you so much, everyone.